What I'm about to tell you will change everything you think you know about the woman who wrote Eat, Pray, Love. Elizabeth Gilbert, the woman who taught millions to find happiness, almost became a murderer. Her victim, the woman she loved most in the world. This isn't fiction. This is her confession. In her new book, All the Way to the River, Gilbert admits she planned to kill her dying girlfriend to end both their suffering. But this story isn't about murder. It's about the most dangerous addiction of all, love addiction, and how it nearly destroyed the woman who preached self-love to the world. Stay with me for the next 15 minutes, and I'll show you the dark truth behind one of America's most beloved authors. Because what happened after Eat, Pray, Love will shock you to your core. If you know Elizabeth Gilbert, you know her as the inspirational author of Eat, Pray, Love, the woman who traveled the world to find herself and taught millions to do the same. She seemed to have it all figured out. But in 2025, Gilbert released All the Way to the River, and it shattered every assumption we had about her perfect life. This isn't another spiritual journey. This is a confession so raw, so devastating, that even her biggest fans are questioning everything. At the center of this story is Rayya Elias, a musician, filmmaker, and former heroin addict who became Gilbert's best friend, then lover, then the person who almost destroyed them both. Before I tell you about Gilbert's darkest moments, I need to ask you something. Have you ever loved someone so much it felt like addiction? Have you ever stayed in a toxic relationship because leaving felt impossible? If yes, drop guilty in the comments, because this story is about to get very real. And smash that like button, because what I'm about to reveal about love addiction will make you question every relationship you've ever had. The story starts in 2000. Elizabeth Gilbert, already a successful author, walks into a salon and meets Rayya Elias, a Lebanese-American hairdresser with a punk rock past and enough charisma to light up New York City. Rayya wasn't just any hairdresser. She was a recovering heroin addict, a filmmaker, a musician, and according to Gilbert, a legend to all who knew her. They became instant best friends, the kind of friendship that feels like finding your other half. Rayya had this theory about friendship levels. Most people are just your Fifth Avenue friends' surface-level professional contacts. But if you're really lucky, you find someone who will walk all the way to the river with you, someone who knows everything, who you call when you have nowhere else to turn. Gilbert and Rayya were all the way to the river friends. For 16 years, they were inseparable. Gilbert was married, Rayya had her own relationships, but their bond was unbreakable. Until 2016, when everything changed. Rayya was diagnosed with pancreatic and liver cancer, terminal cancer. As Gilbert sat in that hospital room, watching her best friend face death, she realized something that would destroy her marriage and nearly destroy her life. She wasn't just losing her best friend. She was losing the love of her life, and she had never even admitted it to herself. What happened next shocked everyone who knew them. Gilbert left her husband, declared her love for Rayya, and they had a commitment ceremony, all while Rayya was dying of cancer. But this isn't a beautiful love story. This is where the addiction began. Before I tell you how love addiction nearly turned Gilbert into a killer, hit that subscribe button and tell me in the comments, have you ever made a life-changing decision based on someone else's timeline? Because what Gilbert did next will make you understand why love can be the most dangerous drug of all. Here's what Gilbert confesses in her book, and this is where it gets brutal. The moment she and Rayya became romantic partners, everything went to hell. Rayya, who had been clean from heroin for over a decade, relapsed. Hard. She started using cocaine, alcohol, pain medication, anything she could get her hands on. And Gilbert became addicted to something even more dangerous. Gilbert became addicted to Rayya herself. Not the healthy kind of love, the obsessive, codependent, all-consuming kind that therapists call love addiction. She couldn't function without Rayya's approval. She lost herself completely in trying to save someone who was determined to self-destruct. Listen to how Gilbert describes it. I was addicted to the chaos. I was addicted to the crisis. I was addicted to being needed by someone who was falling apart. Does this sound familiar to anyone? Love addiction is real, and it's devastating. It's when you mistake intensity for intimacy, drama for passion, and suffering for devotion. Gilbert thought she was being a devoted partner. Actually, she was enabling Rayya's destruction while destroying herself. But here's the shocking part. As Rayya got sicker and more addicted, Gilbert's behavior became more extreme. She started lying to friends and family. She isolated herself. She made Rayya's addiction her full-time job. And then, in the most disturbing confession in the book, Gilbert admits she started fantasizing about murder-suicide. She wanted to kill Rayya to end her suffering, then kill herself. She even researched methods online. Let me be clear about what's happening here. The woman who wrote Eat, Pray, Love, the woman who taught millions about self-love and finding inner peace, was planning to commit murder because she couldn't handle losing the person she was addicted to. This isn't about cancer being tragic. This is about what happens when love becomes a drug and withdrawal feels like death. Gilbert wasn't just grieving her partner's illness. She was going through withdrawal from her addiction to chaos, crisis, and being needed. Studies show that love addiction activates the same brain pathways as cocaine addiction. The highs are euphoric, the lows are suicidal, and like any addiction, it makes you do things you never thought possible. Gilbert's murder fantasies weren't about mercy. They were about control. When you're addicted to someone, their independence, even their right to die on their own terms, becomes a threat to your supply. Before I tell you how this story ends and whether Gilbert ever got the help she needed, I want you to think about your own relationships. Have you ever felt like you couldn't live without someone? Have you ever stayed in chaos because peace felt boring? Share this video with someone who needs to understand the difference between love and addiction. The wake-up call came when Gilbert realized she was becoming dangerous. One night, as she watched Rayya shoot up cocaine while dying of cancer, Gilbert had a moment of clarity that probably saved both their lives. She joined Sex and Love Addicts Anonymous. Yes, that's a real thing. She got a sponsor, worked the 12 steps, and for the first time in her life, faced the truth about her addiction to chaos and codependency. Here's what recovery taught Gilbert: loving someone doesn't mean sacrificing yourself on the altar of their addiction. Real love sometimes means walking away, even when they're dying. In one of the most painful scenes in the book, Gilbert makes the decision to physically separate from Rayya during her final months. Not because she stopped loving her, but because their relationship had become toxic for both of them. Rayya died in January 2018, alone in a hospital room. Gilbert wasn't there because her sponsor had told her that being present for Rayya's death would trigger her own relapse into love addiction. Can you imagine? Missing the death of the person you love most because your addiction to them was so strong that being there would destroy you both. That's the reality of love addiction. But here's where Gilbert's story becomes hopeful. After Rayya's death, instead of relapsing into another addictive relationship, Gilbert did something radical. She stayed alone. She stayed in therapy. She kept going to meetings. She learned to have a relationship with herself that wasn't based on crisis or chaos. For the first time in her adult life, Gilbert discovered what healthy love actually feels like. She writes, "I had to learn that love without drama is not boring love, it's sustainable love. Love without crisis is not passionless love, it's peaceful love." Recovery from love addiction has a notoriously low success rate because our culture celebrates exactly the kind of behavior Gilbert describes. We think jealousy means passion. We think suffering means devotion. We think chaos means excitement. Look at our movies, our songs, our social media posts about relationships. We glorify the exact behaviors that destroy lives. Gilbert's story forces us to ask, how many of us are addicted to love without even knowing it? So what can we learn from Elizabeth Gilbert's darkest chapter? First, addiction doesn't discriminate. It doesn't matter how successful, wealthy, or spiritually evolved you are. Addiction will find your weakness and exploit it. Second, love addiction is real addiction. If you can't be happy without someone, if you lose yourself in relationships, if you mistake intensity for intimacy, you might need help, and there's no shame in getting it. Third, real love doesn't require you to set yourself on fire to keep someone else warm. Real love is sustainable, peaceful, and allows both people to grow. If this story resonated with you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Comment below if you recognize any love addiction patterns in your own life. Subscribe for more stories about recovery, healing, and the courage to tell the truth. Elizabeth Gilbert went from planning murder to finding peace. She went from being addicted to chaos to creating sustainable love. If she can recover from the deepest, darkest addiction, so can you. Because the first step to healing isn't finding the right person to love. It's learning to love yourself enough to choose peace over chaos, health over intensity, and recovery over addiction.